What's going on, guys? It's Fantasy Stock Exchange here, and today we're bringing you back another installment of the Dynasty Decision Series we do over here at the Fantasy Stock Exchange YouTube channel. So I'm pumped. This is a very fun series that myself and Corey actually have done for the past month or so now, and it's a really nice thing to just get the community involved, talk with you guys, and really go over your teams at a personal level. So that being said, Corey, how you doing today?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a fun exercise. If you guys want your team featured on an upcoming Dynasty Decisions episode, make sure you join the Discord, or you can just DM me or Danny on Twitter. Our Twitters are on the screen right now, and you can have your team featured on the next Dynasty Decisions episode. We ask that you keep your questions brief and keep them, to the point. We like to, answer more questions that are like trade related or who should I draft kind of related. Whereas some of the rate my team questions, we can go in a number of different directions. We just make the show go off the rails at that point. So nonetheless, excited for this. We got a number of teams that need some help, a number of teams that don't need some help because they're already too good. But that being said, let's hit the intro.
Okay, so to start off the video, we're going to be going over DJ Platinum 81's team. So you guys can see the team on the screen right now, but this is a 12-team Dynasty half PPR Superflex tight end premium. So you see right now, Carson Wentz was the quarterback on his team prior to the rookie draft, and in the rookie draft actually added 3 rookie quarterbacks with Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones. You see the receiving core: Diggs, Metcalf, Sutton, Perriman, Parker, Diami at the 306. Really good over there. Running backs: Christian McCaffrey, Mike Davis, Leonard Fournette, Anthony McFarland, Zach Moss, and a couple others. And then at tight end, you got Logan Thomas, Tyler Higbee, and Pat Freiermuth out of significance. And he basically says update with the trade he basically just did. He basically gave up Stephon Diggs, Cortland Sutton, and a 2022 second rounder for Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, Myles Gaskin, and a 2023 first. So he basically asked us what are our thoughts on the trade, and he also just wants us to kind of talk about his team in depth. So that being said, what's your first initial thought on the deal that he made?
So we kind of had a differing of opinions when we looked at this trade. The way I like to look at trades, especially when it's like a package deal, is I like to break down the trade into parts, and I also like to look at what's the best asset in the trade. And the best asset in the trade is Stephon Diggs. But when you break up this trade into parts, you got Diggs, Sutton in a 2022 second, Godwin, Deontay, Gaskin in a 2023 first. To me, the equivalent value to a guy like Stephon Diggs is Chris Godwin in a 2023 first. I think that's pretty equivalent value, especially knowing, I don't know, for those of you guys that play in Debbie leagues, that the 2023 class is supposed to be very good.
Very good.
So if you're a rebuilding team, Godwin's a little bit younger than Diggs. You could probably ship a guy off in Stephon Diggs, who is at what I would say is probably peak value right now. And Chris Godwin, who was at peak value last year, has fallen a little bit in value, and you can pick up a 2023 first in the process. And then at that point, you have Cortland Sutton versus Deontay Johnson. To me, that's kind of a lateral move. Just kind of, pick your flavor. They both have the similar quarterback question mark going forward. And then at that point, it's Gaskin for a 2022 second rounder. So overall, the trade is fair. Given your current running back situation, you only really have Christian McCaffrey as a viable starter. Mike Davis should be a viable starter this year, but Myles Gaskin, at least for this season, should be RB2 caliber. So I like the move from that perspective because you were really lacking at your RB2 slot.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you mentioned different opinions, but I actually had the same opinion. I thought that it was a very fair overall trade. And in general, you mentioned it, the way I kind of segmented it is you got Diggs and Sutton for Godwin, Deontay in the first. And I'd say that's probably around equivalent value. And then when you segment it, 2022 second for Gaskin, I think is fair. So overall, given the situation of your team, you take that slight receiver downgrade, you end up getting that first, and you add RB depth with Gaskin. I think for the current makeup of your team, it was a good move to make. And you mentioned rating your team overall. So with the addition of Myles Gaskin, you have McCaffrey, Davis, Fournette. So while you still could probably use another piece at the running back, at least you kind of band-aided it for this year where you'll have options like Mike Davis for this year should be a top 24 or so option. Same thing with Myles Gaskin. So at least if you're willing to compete now, you have those two. And let's be honest, after McCaffrey in general, you don't McCaffrey's the piece at the running back position where you don't have to worry as much because this guy's going to put up 30 points on his own regardless. And in terms of your receiving core, in terms of your quarterbacks, like you look to be on par. I say maybe a couple moves where you can maybe part with some future picks and try to get more win now type assets. I think you can honestly make a run at the championship this year if you're able to do that.
Yeah, right. And I think the best pick to me that stands out of your entire draft, because we see all of his rookie picks there.
The Army at 306.
Well, that's a great pick, but I actually think getting Pat Fryermuth at the 305 and a tight end 3 is an even better pick, to be honest, because
Agreed.
Pat Fryermuth was my tight end 3 pre-draft. He's still my tight end 3, but in a tight end premium league where maybe this is a team too that you could look at this team and be like, maybe I'm not quite ready to compete yet because I have 3 rookie quarterbacks. If you wanted to try and compete next year, Pat Fryermuth should be in a great position if he's able to have a good rookie season this year to compete next year, or even you could even flip him after this year. If he, let's say Eric Ebron gets hurt or something like that, and Fryermuth has, he's like a back end of the season waiver wire pickup type in a redraft league, and he gets some buzz going into dynasty drafts next year, similar to a guy like Cole Kmet this year. You could probably flip him for something maybe a little bit more assured going forward.
At least a second.
Yeah, because you have Logan Thomas and Tyler Higbee. You'd probably want to upgrade going forward in a tight end premium. It's really hard to get tight ends in a tight end premium, and I think Fryermuth is a type of asset that could pay off pretty well long term, even if you decided to keep him.
Agreed. And again, I mentioned win now, but I will say too, year 2 is probably where your window is as those young quarterbacks develop. And in general, I mean, you could definitely be able to make a move year 2 and on, given the current makeup of your team. So overall, I think we're in agreement that he's in a very good position. So we can kind of move off and go
real quick. The one thing I will say is that I probably wouldn't have picked 2 straight quarterbacks where you picked them. If you knew you could get, I guess you wouldn't have known this in hindsight, but I would have been much more comfortable with your team if you had Carson Wentz, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones, and you would have picked Travis Etienne at or Najee Harris if he was probably there too.
I wouldn't have picked Etienne over Fields personally because, again, I've mentioned multiple times.
Right. Okay, so would you have picked Harris over Fields though? Because he might have been there.
And his current makeup, yeah, probably.
Because I'm guessing he would have picked Trevor Lawrence if he was there at 102, which tells me that Trevor Lawrence went 101.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming as well.
Yeah, so to me, I wouldn't have passed on Najee Harris. I probably would have went Najee Harris and Trey Lance. So then that way you had Christian McCaffrey and Najee Harris as your running backs. But nonetheless, you have a bunch of young quarterbacks. You could even, if you wanted to flip a guy like Justin Fields, Trey Lance, or Mac Jones, you could even try and do that for a running back upgrade. If you wanted to, maybe you're halfway through this season, you realize that your team really is competing this year. Fields and Lance are like starting games and they're just rushing for a ton of yards. You could probably try and flip a guy like Mac Jones for a running back and maybe use that 2023 first rounder that you picked up, go Mac Jones in a 2023 first for an aging running back asset like maybe Derrick Henry or something like that. See if the owner would take something like that.
And I was even thinking, like, if you look at it, the team that drafted the team that drafted Najee Harris, let's say hypothetically the 3-4 quarterbacks went off before his pick. Hypothetically, if he still needs a quarterback, you could probably get Harris in a small piece for Justin Fields. Because people will overpay for quarterbacks, especially in the current makeup of your league. So overall, though, I really like your team. In year 2 and on, you should be a very good contender. Getting De'Ami Brown as well at the 306 is just a crime, in my opinion. But that being said, we can get off and go to the next team. And that's going to be PeacheyM's team, who says it's a 12-team Superflex tight end premium. Doesn't specify how much of a tight end premium it is. I'm just going to assume that it's a 1.5x. So if you guys are unfamiliar with that, basically, if it's a full PPR league, tight ends would get 1.5 points per PPR. So with that being said, quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Tua, and Andy Dalton. Running backs, he's got Dalvin, CH, Breida, Ronald Jones, and Salvin Ahmed. Wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, Cole Beasley, Darnell Mooney, Jamison Crowder, Sterling Shepard, Russell Gage, N'Keal Harry, Greg Ward, and Isaiah Coulter. Tight end, he's got Darren Waller, David Njoku, Ross Dwelly, and Devin Asiasi. And he's still got his rookie draft to come. He's got the 102, the 202, the 206, and his 2022 picks are all stocked up, and his 2023 picks are all stocked up. So he basically is wondering what he should do with the draft picks and whether he should target a quarterback early. So in a super flex at that 102, if Trey Lance is available or Trevor Lawrence is available, that has to be the pick, in my opinion, because quite frankly, you don't have a third quarterback, and even Tua himself is kind of a question mark in terms of how he can provide you quarterback 2 value long term until we really see it. And in general, you need a 3 solid quarterback foundation in a super flex to be able to compete long term. So that 102, in my opinion, is locked in at Trevor Lawrence or Trey Lance, who I have both as top 10 overall quarterbacks in Dynasty. And then when you're looking at that 202, 206 is honestly just best player available. Don't reach on a running back just because you need one. Don't reach whatever. Like if you can get, say at the 202, I don't know, an Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, something like that would be a very good addition. And you mentioned it, even at that 206, if people start panicking, if say a Michael Carter or Trey Sermon's available and somebody's panicking because they need a running back bad, they want to move up, you could probably get like the 209 and a future third and move down and still end up getting either one of them that falls or even a tight end to add depth behind Waller. So overall, there's a lot of flexibility you can do with this team, in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on this current makeup?
Right, because I think the 202, you should be able to get one of Devontae Smith, Rashad Bateman, or Elijah Moore there. And I would not pivot from those guys because I believe those are the best players available at that point because Mac Jones should be off the board at that point, pushing some guys down. I think it's a mistake if you try and reach on Michael Carter, if you try and reach on Trey Sermon at the 202. If either of those guys are there at the 206, I'm okay pulling the trigger there, assuming that, Elijah Moore is still not off the board or something like that. But yeah, the 206 pick, that's the pick I would look for a running back. But again, if Michael Carter or Trey Sermon are not there, do not pick, I don't know, Chuba Hubbard at 206 just because you need a running back. Just, stick with your board, stick with Terrace Marshall or De'Ami Brown or whoever's there at 206 and, package some assets and go get a running back another way. Everybody assumes that you have to get a running back in the rookie draft. There's plenty of ways that you can acquire a running back. Always pick the best player available. Just never reach for need. You can reach for need within a tier, which is why I said at 206, I think Sermon and Carter are within that tier, but at 202, it's too early for both those guys, in my opinion.
And briefly touching upon what I mentioned, like what are your thoughts on maybe even bargaining that pick, saying 206, somebody's at the 209, they need a running back, you trade down to the 209, maybe pick up a future third and add that. You could
probably get a future one. And the reason I say that is because I literally did this in our Scott's Tots League. I traded up to the 207 and gave up my future first rounder because Elijah Moore was still on the board. So if someone is slipping, let's say it's Carter, let's say it's Elijah Moore or something like that, and somebody wants to get that, you might be able to get their next year's first for that pick just because they view that player as like a first-round player, similar to the way I did. So if Carter's on the board or Sermon's on the board and someone's willing to give up a future first for them, even if it's 2023 first, I'd probably do it.
Yeah. Oh, I'd easily do it in 2023. I think I know it's hindsight, right? Or it's foresight right now. It's projecting forward, but that 2023 class as of now, Bijan Robinson, Tank Bigsby, DJ Ugalele in particular, that class is going
to be... It's a tight end premium too. Isn't Mayer in that class?
Yeah. That class is going to be fun. I think Arik Gilbert's in that as well. So the LSU tight end. So that being said, I know we're talking about guys that are like 19 years old right now. So you guys are probably like, what the heck? We're not talking about Devi, but it's just fun looking forward. But definitely try to capitalize on that value, especially in a tight end premium. If you can trade down and still get a quality tight end option or a future pick, I absolutely would be able and willing to do that for you. So that being said,
ideally though, if you could come out of that draft with Trey Lance, Rashad Bateman, and Michael Carter or Trey Sermon with those three picks, that's a home run start. I think that's exactly what you want to have happen, basically, because then at that point, you're not reaching for need. You're just getting the kind of the value as it falls to you.
Yep, definitely. So with that being said, we can go on to the next team, and that's going to be Leonardo99 from the Discord. He says it's a super flex PPR 4-point passing touchdown league. So you guys can see his team consists of Josh Allen, Matt Ryan, and Zach Wilson at quarterback. His running backs are Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers, AJ Dillon, Mike Davis, and then with depth options being Hines, Carrion, Booker, and Henderson. Wide receivers, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster with a whole bunch of depth with Rondale, Gallup, etc. You can see on the screen. Tight ends, Andrews, Hooper, Jonnu, and Brevin. So he basically says he made the move of Kirk in a second for Godwin. I'm assuming that's Kirk Cousins.
Let's get a clap in the chat for that move. Jesus.
Yeah, for sure. Now I'm just looking to get a running back. I have all my picks except next year's second. Any other advice would be appreciated, especially with Ryan. I'm thinking of just holding him with Wilson on the bench and having the stack with Ridley. Thinking on getting a better wide receiver or a flex than Mike Davis. So let's go on to the first one. Great move. I absolutely love it. And right now, pending an opportunity, maybe you feel willing to move up, maybe add a secure option. Wait, has their rookie draft already happened? I'm not sure if he said it. Oh, yeah.
He's Brevin on his team. Okay, so real quick, I want to touch on the Kirk Cousins thing because to me, if you can get anywhere close to this kind of value for Kirk Cousins, you should absolutely. I would have traded Kirk Cousins for Godwin straight up. I would have done that straight up because I think Kirk Cousins is literally a ticking time bomb right now. And I know the wide receiver position is not nearly as valuable as a quarterback who's starting in the NFL like Kirk Cousins.
He gave up next year's second.
Oh, okay. Okay, never mind.
Either way,
it's still a great trade in my opinion. So Kirk Cousins. is a guy that is got a lot of smoke around him right now. He's a guy that the team doesn't seem to believe in. They took a quarterback early in the third round. His wide receivers going on talk shows talking about how every quarterback he's ever seen is better than Kirk Cousins. I don't want Kirk Cousins if I can help it. I'm not telling you to get rid of him and sell him for nothing, but this is adequate value. If you can trade him, package him with a second-round pick, and go and get what I would consider a top 12 dynasty wide receiver in Chris Godwin, then you should absolutely do something like that. If you can go and get a rookie quarterback for him, let's say someone took a rookie quarterback in their draft and they're a win-now team. Let's say they don't want to wait for Mac Jones. Like, I would take Mac Jones straight up over Kirk Cousins right now.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it. And you could probably even get Mac in a pick from a contending team because they're going to look at Kirk Cousins being that top 15 type option that can kind of take them over the top, whereas they're not sure if Mac Jones is going to start. So I fully agree. I mean, the way I look at it is Mac Jones basically just Kirk Cousins on a rookie deal, to be honest. Right. But that being said, I like the current spot you're at, and that trade was very good value for you, in my opinion, considering your current core. He also says any advice would be appreciated, especially with Ryan. Honestly, this is going to sound counterintuitive to what you've seen on Twitter, to what everybody's saying. Everybody's just going to say, sell Ryan, sell Ryan, sell Ryan. He's probably not going to be the quarterback of the team for the foreseeable future, given the direction that they've been. And I honestly disagree with that because they made their claim in the NFL draft. That 4th overall pick, if they wanted to move off Ryan this year or next year or the year after, they would have taken Justin Fields. They didn't. They took Kyle Pitts, signaling that they want to win now, in my opinion. That's how I took it. And in general, if you actually look at Matt Ryan's contract, the dead money hit, if they were to cut him over the next 2 years, is just so unsustainable for any franchise to be able to hold. So at minimum, you're getting Matt Ryan on the Falcons with those weapons for the next 2 years. I don't think the value...
There's a chance that Matt Ryan has a Matt Stafford-like...
Yes.
Exit from Atlanta, right? Because let's say the Falcons suck again next year, right? They have a top 5 pick and they want, let's say all these quarterbacks play really well, like Sam Howell and Rattler and all these guys, and we got like a pretty good quarterback class next year. What's stopping the Falcons from going out and getting a quarterback next year and trading Matt Ryan to the Packers who've just moved Aaron Rodgers, or like a team like that? Like I could totally see something like that happening, and that extends the window for Matt Ryan. I don't think Matt Ryan's anywhere close to being done. I don't think he's cooked. I don't think he's Ben Roethlisberger or anything like that. So to me, I would treat Matt Ryan the same way you would treat someone like Tom Brady, honestly. I think he has top 12, top 15 at minimum type appeal, at least for the next 2 years. And I think he should be only just a touch below a guy like Matthew Stafford. I don't think we should be viewing Matt Ryan as this like dinosaur that's not going to be very relevant for more than like 1 or 2 years max.
Yep. No, I fully agree. And finally, he says, thinking on getting a better wide receiver or a better flex than Mike Davis. So looking at the team, you currently have, again, Mike Davis is your RB3. Wide receiver course looking good. I would honestly, I would explore that. I mean, Mike Davis is a fine 1-year option, but if you want to get a more long-term flex, more long-term depth position, I would be fine with moving future assets in order to secure that, because judging your team right now, I mean, you're in a pretty good win now type situation with Allen and Ryan being your starters, with Zach Wilson on the bench, Gibson, Akers, Davis, Ridley, Moore, Godwin, Juju. Like you have a team that's willing to compete right now. If you can add maybe 1 or 2 extra pieces to add to that depth, I would absolutely look into doing that. So overall, you should be a win now type situation. So treat your team as so, because let's be honest here, the championship's going to be more in the long run than maybe imparting on a little bit more value than you maybe should have. So overall, I like where you're at.
Yeah, no disagreements there.
All right, so we got Corg's team next from the Discord. He says his quarterbacks are currently Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston, and Gardner Minshew. Running backs Gibson, Hunt, Hyde, and Breida. Wide receivers T. Higgins, CeeDee Lamb, Laviska, Rager. You got a bunch of other depth here that you guys can see on the screen. Tight ends, Hawkinson, Goddard, Gronk, Troutman, and Sample. He also notes that he has the 104, 108, 109, 204, 206, and 209 in this rookie draft. And the 2022, he has his 1, 2, and 3. And basically his question is signaling it's a super flex PPR league with the 6 point for passing touchdown. He really asked what approach that he should take going into the season. He thinks he could potentially have no starting quarterbacks for the year, and he's weak at running back. He's wondering if he should tear down the team more and try to get more 2022, 2023 assets, or he should go all in and try to compete this year. So I do agree with that preface that you said. Watson, Winston, Minshew, you definitely need to add to that quarterback room, because you don't know if Watson's going to play this year. You don't know if Jameis is going to play past this year, and Gardner Minshew is probably going to be a backup in the league for the next 5 years. So overall, I mean, given your spot, you have young assets with Gibson, Lamb, Higgins, Hawkinson. Any type of win now assets for any type of future picks. Like if you can get, you mentioned it's a tight end premium. If you get like a late second type for Gronk or an early third type for Gronk, I would do that type of move. You mentioned guys like Beasley, Cephas, Peoples-Jones. People might be willing to overpay with them right now to secure that depth. I'd be jumping all over the value that I possibly can. And honestly, like if somebody, like if you got offered right now a pick you expect to be an early second, would you take that or Jameis Winston?
I think I'd keep Jameis for an
early second. That's fair. But overall, like what are your thoughts on maneuvering some of those older pieces and just trying to pick up future picks, especially considering where you're at right now from this year's class? You can add a whole nucleus of young talent to support Higgins, Lamb, Gibson for the foreseeable future.
I actually like where he's at right now. Like, yeah, you're probably not going to win the championship this year, but I like where you're at from a rebuilding standpoint, right? Because Deshaun Watson's a rebuilding type quarterback. He's not a guy that's a win now guy because we don't know what his legal situation is. So I would just hold Watson. I would not
I agree with holding
Watson or anything like that. But here's what I would do with your picks and what your situation is. You're probably not going to win this year, but you have a great young core with Lamb, Shenault, Higgins, Hawkinson, Gibson, Watson. Like that's a great young core.
Yes.
So what I would do with that 104 pick is I would probably target a guy like Trey Lance or potentially Justin Fields or potentially Zach Wilson for myself. But here's the thing. With that 108 pick, to me, that's got to be Javonte Williams or Travis Etienne. If either of them fall there, you've got to grab those guys. And that 109 pick, to me, I think Zach Wilson might be there for you. And if Zach Wilson is there, to me, you would hit the home run of this draft. If you could come out of this thing with Trey Lance at 104, Zach Wilson, and Javonte Williams or Travis Etienne. If you could come away with those 3 or 4 players with your 3 first rounders, yeah, you're probably not going to compete this year. But going forward and next year, you're probably in a winning window starting next year.
Oh, and I fully agree. And that's why I said, like, if you can move like the Gronks and stuff for 2022 picks,
trim some of the fat of your roster. Yeah,
and,
you could definitely pull off something like that.
Yeah, 100%. So you mentioned, like, let's just say hypothetically Zach Wilson and Etienne are gone. You're able to get Javonte Williams at 108. The 109, you could still get a quality player like a Devonta Smith because it is a tight end premium. So I'm assuming Kyle Pitts is not going to be there. If Kyle Pitts is somehow there,
would you take Mac Jones over Devonta Smith given his current team? No, you wouldn't do that.
No, you know you're not going to win now, so at least you can add a Trey Lance, Justin Fields type, and just look at next year's picks. Say hypothetically, you trim Gronk, you trim
because next year you'll have Watson as a starter, and you'll have Trey Lance or Justin Fields, whoever it is, in their second year. So you'll have 2 starters, and hopefully Jameis Winston's a starter also at that point. But yeah, I think you could definitely come away with a running back in this draft, and I would probably do it at the 108, not the 104. I would not take a running back at 104 unless it's Najee Harris that's on the board. I think you're in a pretty good situation, honestly. That 204, 206, you could probably grab a couple good receivers with those picks. 209, maybe you go for a tight end even, another quarterback if you wanted to add some QB depth. I wouldn't hate taking a guy like Kellen Mond at the 209. I don't think it's a complete reach or anything like that. So yeah, I think you're in a good position. I wouldn't count on competing this year, but don't just sell all your picks for future picks.
Yeah.
Because I do think this is a quick rebuild. I don't think this is a tear it all down and get rid of everybody.
This is like a 2022, you start reaching like the playoff contention type area. Right. That's where I see your team at. It's 1 year away. You add those future picks, you let them nurture, let them develop for this year. And by their second year, including the young nucleus you already have, I really think you can make a run. So anyways, we get into the next team, and this is going to be Wolverine's team. He mentions also with addition to this team, he's got the 102, 110, and a bunch of second round picks you guys will see on the screen eventually. But it's a 1 quarterback PPR league, and you can start 1 running back and 2 flexes. So overall, he's got Kirk Cousins, Teddy B, and Andy Dalton at quarterback. Zeke and Barkley as his 2 running backs. It's a great way to start. Wide receivers, Moore, Godwin, Manny Sanders, Corey Davis, Sterling Shepard with a couple other fodder on the bench. And then you got Gronk, Jimmy G, and Austin Hooper. So overall, and he's also got a kicker on defense, but I'm not really going to elaborate as much on that. Doesn't really have any questions here unless he left it.
Well, he's got his picks here. We can go with direction of his picks.
For sure. So he's actually wondering when to take his rookie quarterbacks he's running. So overall, that 102's got to be already slotted in for Najee or Jamar Chase. You do not reach at that spot. You take the best player available. You take Kyle Pitts. And a non.
You have Gronk and Jimmy G as your start, and Austin Hooper as your tight ends. To me, taking Kyle Pitts might not be a bad idea.
And a non-tight end premium, maybe you consider him over Chase. But if Najee's on the board, you can't do it. in my
No,
opinion.
no, not over Najee, but over Chase. I'm saying, would you take?
Yeah, I would consider it. But then again, I mean, he is kind of like, aside from Moore and Godwin, he is kind of weak at the receiver spot too. So I mean, it just kind of comes to personal preference. If you view Jamar Chase like the industry does, you take him there. If you view Kyle Pitts like the industry does, you take him there. Yeah, there's a segments of this industry that just value each as like generational players. But with that being said, he also said he's going to cut Andy Dalton and add Jameis Winston and Darnold on the waivers. So, I mean,
Darnold on his waivers? Jesus. Okay. So
in a 1 QB, yeah.
Right. It's a 1 quarterback. To me, that 110 could be definitely a quarterback spot if you wanted to take a Trevor Lawrence or a Trey Lance, whoever you value higher.
I wouldn't even. I like honestly, like if you add Winston and Darnold in a 1 quarterback league, that's a supplement enough value for you. And you could probably at the 110 still get like an Elijah Moore.
Cousins and Winston and Darnold probably, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So actually, now that you say that, like say Najee Harris goes 101, you could take Kyle Pitts at the 102 and get like an Elijah Moore at the 110 and just take best player available for the rest of the class. You don't have to really worry about supplementing teams or supplementing needs with this roster, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's probably the direction I would go. I think I would lean a guy like Kyle Pitts at 102 just because it's in a league that you can only start 1 running back. He has 2 flex spots, so he could start up to 3 running backs a week. But you have Zeke and Barkley already. Like those are 2 like phenomenal assets right now. So unless you got Najee Harris, which you could start every single week, but then at that point you're kind of hamstringing yourself if you have a lot of wide receivers. You're never sitting any of those running backs, like if you have all 3 of those guys. So I like having a lot of flexibility. So I wouldn't say like absolutely target a running back because you can only start 1. The tight end position is the biggest point of emphasis for your roster, especially youth-wise, because Gronk will probably be okay this year, but after this year, we don't really know what his future is in Tampa. He might retire when Brady retires or whatever the case is. So even having Gronk this year, knowing that you won't have to play Kyle Pitts this year is also a great advantage to have. So I think 102 has to be Kyle Pitts for me, unless Najee Harris is there.
Yep. No, I agree with that. And with that being said, we'll try to zoom through the rest to like not drag this on for too long. Right. So we left off at Wolverine. So we got Spicy Hot's team next. Spicy Hot Taco, a member of the Listener League. Little shout out right there. We'll get into Jared later on too, who's also in it. I think they're actually in a league together because they both send screenshots, and I think they were both like interacting with each other in it. So get that little bit of rivalry. With that being said, you guys can see the team right now at quarterback. Actually, did he say it's a super flex? No tight end premium, I believe. So that being said, he's got Herbert, Burrow, Lance, Carr as his quarterbacks. Very, very strong, stable in a super flex. Running back, you got Kamara, Chubb, Eckler. Great start again with some more depth pieces. At receiver, Ridley, Sutton, Chark, Boyd. More depth, including Devonta and Waddle, actually, I just noticed, and Elijah Moore. Okay, that's... Yeah, a tight end, Long, Komet, Fant, McKitty, Logan Thomas.
We can keep this one kind of short because he says he basically wants to know if and what he needs to do to upgrade the team. Nothing. You don't need to do anything to upgrade your team because
maybe one win now receiver for like Boyd and
sure. But the thing with your team is that your running backs and your quarterbacks are going to carry
ridiculous. Yes,
because you have Alvin Kamara, Nick Chubb, and Austin Eckler, who all if you guys watched our running back rankings video yesterday, all 3 of which are in our top 10 dynasty running backs, and then your quarterbacks as well. You have Burrow, Herbert, and Lance, all 3 of which are in our top 10 quarterbacks. So you have cornerstone pieces at the 2 most important positions in the Superflex league. And I mean, aside from that, you don't really have anything else that you need to do. Your team should be enough, even if you have middling receivers, which I wouldn't even say you do. I think Sutton and Ridley could be difference makers for you. And then you have a number of young guys that could develop into difference makers. So your team is perfect the way it is, in my opinion. You said whether or not it's a good idea to go for a guy like Diggs or AJ Brown and what I would need to give up for them. I honestly wouldn't even target one of those guys because while I love those guys, while they're great for Dynasty, they're at peak value right now. Those 3 guys, you guys that you just mentioned are top 5 Dynasty receivers, and you're going to have to give up a lot to get them. And I'm not sure if it's going to make enough of a difference for your team to go do that.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement here. You're in a really good spot. Let me just check how many flexes you can start. Sorry, I should have been a little more prepared with this, but he can start up to 2 flexes. So he can start 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and 2 flexes. So his current starting lineup is literally just filled with studs right now. So you're absolutely chilling. Overall, like you got all your future picks as well. You actually got an extra 3rd in 2022. So not only did you have that team from your startup, you actually profited a 3rd round pick as well. So
crazy.
Yeah, you're in a great spot. I think I actually remember he was messaging me during this draft. I helped him a little bit, but overall, great job. And to be honest, just circulate the price. If you can get Diggs or AJ Brown, even for like, if somebody was willing to do like Tyler Boyd and that first round pick from one of those guys, I would do that still. Like,
But no one's going to do that.
But if someone does, like, I mean,
sure, but like
you've seen the deals I've made.
Looking more like Cortland Sutton in one of those and a first round pick, and
I wouldn't do
probably
that
a third also.
Yeah,
like,
no, okay.
It's hard to get those. Like stud receivers are harder to get than you think. Like I know the receivers in general are undervalued, but guys like Sutton are undervalued, not guys like AJ Brown and Diggs. Those guys are real difference makers.
I agree. So overall, he also asked, did I need to search for more RB depth? I mean, you got 3 studs. Lat Murray should be a decent like spot in if you ever need him. Aside from that, I mean, you have all your future picks. So I don't know.
I would just target running backs next year in the draft if you can. Maybe trade up or whatever if you need to.
Like maybe if you could move like either those 2 3s or that 2 for even like a Mike Davis to win now, like I wouldn't even hate that for your perspective.
I just personally wouldn't do anything. I would just, if you need running back depth after this season, then you go out and target it in your rookie draft next year and try and target it with some young running back depths or something like that. Because I think to go and get it now is probably just a waste of time because the 3 guys that you have are studs, at least for this year. And if they get injured, then I mean, it's unfortunate, but you have enough receivers that you should be able to supplement your flex spots with. Let's say Devontae and Jalen Waddle start to come on halfway through the season, you're going to be able to flex those guys. So it shouldn't be a problem for you.
Yeah, for sure. So with that being said, we can get to the next team. That's going to be Wamito Bonito One's team. He's got a very nice name, by the way.
Real quick, a big shout out from Chile he's listening to. So that's where we're going international now. So 6 point per passing touchdown for I can't even pronounce his name, to be honest. Bonito.
Wamito Bonito One.
Yeah, sure. And 0.25 points per carry. So running backs definitely got a bit of a bump there. A PPR league and 1.5 PPR for tight end. So a half point tight end premium. It's a deep starting roster, 4 flex spots, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a super flex, a regular quarterback slot, and a tight end slot. So you could start like 11, 12 guys on a given week in this league. He's got Dak, Watson, Winston, Jordan Love, and Kellen Mond. So quite, I would say pretty strong from that front. The only question is Watson, obviously.
Quarterback 3,
Yeah, and then you got JT, ETN, David Montgomery as your top 3 running backs, which is awesome. And then you got Michael Carter, DJ Dallas, Salvin Ahmed, Ty Johnson, Khalil Herbert. Wide receivers, Deontay, Chase, Brandon Ayuk, Laviska Shenault, Darnell Mooney, Jordan Palmer, Des Fitzpatrick, Russell Gage, Scotty Miller, Quintez Cephas, and then Irv Smith, Zach Ertz, and Harrison Bryant as your tight ends. So overall, he basically just kind of wants us to rate his team. I would say overall, your quarterback 3 slot is a little questionable just because of Jameis Winston and Kellen Mond are thrust into a quarterback 2 slot, which would probably happen this year if Deshaun Watson's suspended or, if he's exempt this year or something like that. You're a little shaky at that spot. So I think your best option at that position is just to wait and see right now. It kind of sucks. It's kind of risky, but going out and trading for another quarterback might just end up hurting your team more. If you could sell a guy like Jordan Love for like Ben Roethlisberger or something like that, or not Ben Roethlisberger, but maybe a win now type of quarterback that you could use.
This is the type of situation because you have Mond. I don't mind even making a move Love for fucking Cousins. Honestly,
I don't think anybody's going to do that though.
No.
All
right, fair.
So, like, if you could do that, definitely get that done. But running back wise, you got a great young core of running backs. You should be in prime position. You also have a team that I might mention is going to be perfect for 2022 as well. So I might stick it out this year, see if you can, compete for a playoff spot or whatever. But you should be championship ready in 2022. Once the Watson concerns are gone, once he is the full-time starter in Jacksonville, once Jamar Chase has established himself, maybe Ayuk gets a little bit better, Visca as well. You have and Irv Smith as well. Like you have a really good team for 2 years from now. So I would just kind of take your lumps, try and compete this year, and hope for the best next year.
The only spot too that I kind of noticed is in a 1.5 PPR tight end premium, his tight end core is pretty weak. So overall, maybe you can address it next year because again, I wouldn't like go full in on 2021, but 2022 on, you should be an absolute contender, and that way you can kind of package like let's just say a 2nd round pick and try to get a win now type tight end. Like if a year from now we're looking at a veteran tight end similar to what we see Gronk this year, I wouldn't even mind making that type of move.
Right. Yeah, that could be something like that you could definitely pull off. And yeah, your tight end core right now, you're betting a lot on Irv Smith, so that's a little risky to do. Like I said, though, in 2022, this team should be ready to compete for a championship. I don't know. I think you'd probably need a lot of things to go right to win a championship with this team this year. So you're probably looking at like a fringe playoff contender. Maybe you get beat out in the first round type of team. But at the same time, that's some people think of that as a bad thing. They're like, oh, if you're not going to win the championship, you should just rebuild. Like, no. When you have young pieces like this, like ETN and like Visca and like Ayuk and like Chase that are going to grow as their NFL careers, go along, we expect Jamar Chase to be this time next year potentially a top 10 dynasty wide receiver, right? So that's kind of what you got to look at when you're looking forward with this team. I think these guys should be ready to produce in 2022.
Yep, no, I can actually agree with that, or absolutely agree with that, not actually. With that being said, we can go on to the next team. That's going to be Joschchacho's team from the Discord. And he basically says, for the dynasty decisions, I'm trying to decide who to take at his 103, 107, and 201. He has Wentz coming in on waivers as well. And he says, assuming Najee and Chase are gone, should I look for Pitts or maybe Devonta? He's got Pitts. Oh, no. Okay. Then he updated because this was actually post rookie draft between like when he said this. He said from the rookie draft, he got Pitts, T-Law, and Rondale Moore. He accidentally chose Rondo over Elijah by a misclick, but his league mate said he already picked, so he couldn't have it back. He's wondering if he should hold on to Rondale or maybe go around for someone like the same tier, like a Diami or a Terrence Marshall. So overall, you guys see the screen. Very, very strong team in general. I mean,
Burrow, T-Law, running backs is nothing to sneeze at. Like all four of those guys were in our top 12 yesterday.
Yep, definitely. So overall, with the questions, I mean, let's be honest, there's only really one here, and he's wondering, should he ship Rondale for Diami or Marshall? And, well, I have both those guys ahead of Rondale in my ranking. So, yes, my answer would be yes. If you can get a straight 1-for-1 for either of those guys, I would take that 1-for-1.
Yeah. What would you like give up Rondale and like maybe a piece like – trying to think of like a low end piece that you could give up. Would you give up like Gabe Davis and Rondale Moore for Terrace Marshall?
I'd probably do that, to be honest.
Yeah, see, to me, I see Terrace Marshall as a tier above Rondale Moore. So him, I would do that for. De'Ami Brown, I'd probably need a 1-for-1 or very close to a 1-for-1 because I think Terrace Marshall is a tier ahead of both of those guys, at least for me as of now. So, I definitely think that's somewhat plausible for you to do that. But aside from that, man, like you got a great team. Like you should be competing for a championship this year. Your receivers are deep. Running backs are going to carry your team, and you have two great young quarterbacks to build around going forward, and you got a great young tight end at your 103. So you're in awesome shape.
Yep, 100%. So with that being said, we got Takaiden's team next, and he doesn't really have any questions. He just kind of wants us to take a look at his team. So he's got Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Alex Smith, Andrew Luck, and Zach Wilson. Running back, Barkley, Gibson, Eckler, Gallman, with some fodder on the bench you guys can see. Receivers, Lamb, Chark, Davis, Jacoby Myers with some, again, fodder. I'm just going to say that for all the like redundant pieces. And then tight ends, he's got Kittle. So overall, looking at that team right now, let me just check the league. It's a
super flex. Pretty. There's three flex spots, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs. It's a pretty normal scoring format.
Yeah, no, definitely. So overall, with that being said, I mean, he's got what looks like. He doesn't have picks in 2022, but he's got all his picks in 2023 on. He's actually got 3 first rounders in 2023. So you're big chilling with this roster. I mean, that 3 stack at running back, those 2 quarterbacks in the Superflex, including Wilson on the bench, Lamb, Chark. Yeah, overall, I really like where your team's at. And in general, you could even look at those 2023 window, and you have those 3 first rounders, and you have this team right now. Like, you are going to be absolutely loaded for the future. So overall, you're in a really strong spot. Let's go on to the next team, though.
Real quick, I do want to just address his wide receiver core a little bit because it is a little thin. He's got Lamb, Chark, and Corey Davis as like his top 3 receivers. Those guys are great. I mean, Chark and Davis are more like wide receiver 3s, I would say. So you could potentially make some moves to go after another wide receiver. But like I said, man, like your team is going to get carried by every other position on your roster. So I would try and go out and acquire some value guys if you can. Like a guy like Will Fuller, for example, is a guy that I think is a great value because he could be a lot more valuable a year from now than he is right now. So if you wanted to part with, I don't know, not any of the first that you have in 2023, but maybe a second rounder next year and see if you could go out and get a guy like Will Fuller or something like that. He actually doesn't have his second rounder next year. If you wanted
second and third in 2023, like
if you wanted to try and package some picks for a guy like Will Fuller, just to stabilize maybe one more receiving spot on your team. Or hell, maybe you want to take a 2023 first rounder and go after someone maybe a tier ahead of Will Fuller, like, I don't know, maybe a Cortland Sutton or something like that. You could go out and make a move like that because I think with your roster, you should be competing for a championship this year. With the 3 running backs you have, those two QBs should both be top 5 options. Kittle should be a top 3 tight end. And like I said, those 3 running backs, they're all top 10 options for us going forward. So I think you should be in a position that you can this year, and I wouldn't hate trading one of those picks to try and win.
It's also a 1.5 tight end premium. He's got Kittle, so yeah, you're big chilling there. Anyways, overall, good competing team. Sorry for my convenience story in the background if you heard that. We got JohnConway's team on the board here. He said, this is my other league, because we reviewed his team actually last week as well. It's a 1 quarterback full PPR, and he has the 103, 104, 202, and 204 this year. And his question is really, who do you think he'll land with those picks, and who should he take? So looking at the team, I mean, you got Stafford, Goff, quarterback. Running backs, you got Swift, Akers, Edmonds, Drake, and some baggage. Wide receivers, AJB, Kurt Sam, Judy, Marquise Brown, etc. And then at tight end, he's got Hawkinson and Mo Alley Cox. So in a 1 quarterback, let's just say hypothetically the top 3 picks in this format are going to be in some type of order: Najee, Chase, and Pitts. You take whichever one of those falls to you at 103. 104, you could be looking at maybe like an ETN to add to that running back core, depending on who you get. If you get Najee at that 103, then you can go with a Devonta Smith type. If you get Kyle Pitts at that 103, you can go with a Travis Etienne type. So you have flexibility really.
You can always try and trade that pick too for someone who wants Kyle Pitts, because you have TJ Hawkinson. You wouldn't, I mean, you're not hamstrung. I wouldn't reach on a player below Kyle Pitts, but I would shop the pick in case someone wants to get Kyle Pitts.
Definitely. So you're in a really good spot. That's kind of what I would think. 103, 104, you're looking at the last of that tier. 202, 204, you could be trying to get dart throws. Like if you can get like Elijah Moore, Terrace Marshall, De'Ami Brown, I think that's a really good value for any of them. So overall, I like where you're at, and you should be set from this rookie draft. I know we say that a lot, but take it away with Chase Branden's team.
Yeah, Chase Branden's got a pretty dominant team, if you ask me. It's a 10-teamer, so it's a little bit better rosters naturally because of the less people in the league. But it's a 1 quarterback league, 10-team PPR, pretty normal settings. Got 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a quarterback, 3 flex spots, and a tight end. So pretty normal starting positions there. In a 1 quarterback league, you got Baker Mayfield, you got Trey Lance, Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's more than enough for you to get by at the 1 quarterback format that you're in. At running back, you got an absolutely dangerous 4-stack of young running backs in Alvin Kamara, Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift, and Travis Etienne. That's absurd. Like you're going to be able to start all of those guys on a weekly basis in the coming years. And then you got A.J. Dillon, Latavius Murray, Alexander Madison, and some other guys for some depth. Wide receivers, you got probably 2 of the best young receivers in the league, especially for dynasty purposes, with CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, and actually probably another one with Jamar Chase. Yeah. And you got Brandon Ayuk, Odell Beckham, and then again some good solid depth and some upside on the bench. Tight end wise, you got Kyle Pitts and Gronk. That's a perfect pairing right there. If you guys have Kyle Pitts, go out and acquire Gronk, because you're going to be able to use Gronk while Kyle Pitts develops. And hell, maybe Pitts is good in his rookie year and breaks the tight end trend. But if nothing else, you covered your own ass so that you don't have to start Kyle Pitts in his rookie season. You could just start a guy like Gronk for this year, and then Kyle Pitts is ready to slide in 2022. So overall, you got a competing team, dude. You should be competing for the championship. He said, do you think I should go all in, try trading some of my younger players and picks to get another good young established player, or wait out their development and hopefully be a contender for multiple years? I wouldn't move any of your young assets, because your young assets are so valuable right now. And you might get some Godfather offers, but I wouldn't be shopping them, right? If someone wants to come and get CeeDee Lamb because they're a rebuilding team and they want to trade you like Christian McCaffrey or something like that for it, then do it. But
yeah, I mean, I'd hope so. Like I was going to say, if somebody is looking at ETN and they're saying, okay, whatever, like I have Derrick Henry and I'll give you like, I don't know, somebody might honestly be looking at it like, oh, fuck, I got to get rid of Derrick Henry. He's going to crash in, and we'll give you like Derrick Henry in a second just to move off him and go for an ETN. You could probably pull something like that. I don't mind,
but I wouldn't be shopping them, because when you're in a situation like this where your team is ready to compete and compete for a while, like your team is, I'm not trying to mess that up, right? Like if these guys lose some value because maybe they don't live up to expectations, maybe Jefferson takes a step back in his sophomore year, I'm not willing to move him just because he took a step back or because I'm trying to get more win now type pieces. These guys are good. They're young. They're ready to win now this year and going forward.
Yep. No, I 100% agree. You're in a very good spot. And even for a 10-teamer, that's a very dominant roster that you got going there.
Maybe you get out to a bit of a slow start at the beginning of the season because you have a guy like Kyle Pitts, because ETN might not take the bull by the horns right away. But by mid-season, you should be one of the best teams in your league.
Yeah, 100%. So with that being said, we can go on to the next team and the final team of the video. That is going to be Jared from the Discord and the FSC Official Listener League that we just actually finished drafting, I think, last night. So with that being said, this is a different team. This is actually a team in the same league that Spicy Hots was from earlier. I just kind of confirmed that because I saw on, I think either Spicy Hot has his pick or he has Spicy Hot's pick. Regardless, we'll get into it. Quarterbacks, you got Cousins, Fields, Wilson, Dalton, and Tebow. Running backs, Cook, Henry, White, Williams, Madison, and some fodder. Wide receivers, you got Julio, Godwin, Evans, Bateman, Chase, and some fodder. And then tight ends, you got Herndon and Pitts. So his question really is just a thought. He wasn't sure where to post or send it to a source, but he really wants to know, like, what are the values of the 2022 draft class? Yeah, it's definitely not too early. I mean, let's be honest here. You're always looking ahead. You always have to gain that competitive advantage. So I fully agree. Overall, though, looking at this roster, so he's wondering what he basically could do. And he wants to know whether he's going to win now next year or he wants to sell a few pieces to get some capital. And given the outlook of your team right now, I would try to win now. I mean, you got
to win now squad. Your two running backs are win now backs.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you got Cook, Henry, Julio, Godwin, Evans, who are all really win now type pieces. Honestly, like, there's no, what would you specifically do with this team? Like, the only real concern I have is maybe at the quarterback from a win now perspective.
Tight end, I got a concern because you're relying on Pitts,
that's true.
And I wouldn't go trade for Gronk in this situation because you have Godwin and Evans. So I probably wouldn't go trade for Gronk. But if you can go trade for a older tight end, potentially, let's say, I mean, not trade for this guy, but like, let's say Zach Ertz like gets cut and he gets picked up by the Colts or something, like throw a 4th round pick or a 3rd round pick at the owner, just so you have some kind of insurance that if Pitts doesn't work out early, you can start somebody that's not him. So I would try and secure maybe a bit of an older tight end so that you can maintain that competing window, because I would say the best way for you guys to decide, am I competing? Am I rebuilding? Look at your running backs. That's the best way to decide, because your running backs are usually the engine of your team. Even in a super flex, they're still like one of the most important positions. And if you have Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry, you're competing right now, because those two guys are 2 to 3 year window running backs ideally. And like maybe they get further than that, but in an ideal realistic situation, they're probably only elite fantasy options for 2 to 3 more years.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Overall, the current makeup of your team, the one kind of move I was looking at too, aside from the tight end situation, like, again, yes, try to go for that win now tight end. But if you could package maybe Wilson and somebody's willing to offer you, like, I think someone might offer you like Stafford in a second for Wilson if they're looking to get younger at the position. I would kind of do that in this situation. You got Cousins and Stafford for this year with Fields kind of in the wing. I think that would put you in a really good spot.
I don't mind his quarterback situation, to be honest. I think
for this year, though, if he wants to win them.
I mean, Wilson's going to start all the games. Like you have a guy that you can start. It's not like, because with Fields, we don't know if he's going to start right away. At least with Wilson, you know he's going to start right away. So yeah, you might take a bit of a hit early, but your running back should carry you like pretty well. Like if Wilson's only putting up 15 points a game, you got Cook and Henry combined for like 50 a week. So you should be okay early on. And I think you have a pretty good mix of youth and veteran like talent. So you're not just a complete win now operation. You got Bateman, you got Chase, you got Fields, you got Wilson, you got Pitts. Like you got a lot of young talent, and you got Javonte Williams on your bench too. So I think this year you're really trying to compete. You should be probably next year is probably your real championship window when Javonte's, you know, the starter in Denver, when you got Wilson and Fields a second year in their offenses. Bateman and Chase should be more established by that point as well. Julio might take a bit of a hit by then, but at that point, you're going to have 4 receivers at least that you can start. So, yeah, I would say the next 2 years, you should be able to come away with a championship with the squad.
Yep, that's fair. Again, you can kind of make evaluations at that mid-season, see how the trajectory of your team is going, see if those younger pieces are kind of holding you down, and whether you want to make that transition.
The guys that I would look to move if you're trying to, you know, at mid-season you're not going to make the playoffs or something like that. Cousins and Julio would be the 2 that I would try to move. I wouldn't panic completely and sell Henry or Cook, but I would try and move Cousins or Julio mid-season if you're not competing.
Yep, I fully agree. So with that being said, if you made it this far in the video and we're closing out, what are we going to let them comment today, Corey? What are you thinking?
Trying to think, what am I having for dinner? I'm having kebabs for dinner. So comment down below kebab.
Yeah, comment kebab. So with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of Dynasty Decisions. We will see you for tomorrow's live stream. We're currently putting this out for Saturday. We'll be live streaming on Sunday. So with that being said, peace out, y'all.